Hi there, my name is Ben Scott. I'm with the Resort of Paws Up here at the Missoula Public Library, brand new demo test kitchen. Honored to be here. It's presented by MCAT. Today we're going to be making one of my favorite little appetizers we do at the restaurant. Today we are going to be doing a chicken fried venison loin. This is a little classic spin on our chicken fried steak. I've been living in the state of Montana for about 12 years now. As I've been eating around the state, I find lots of local restaurants like to do chicken fried steaks, and so we tried to do a traditional dish at our restaurant that elevates it and puts a new little spin on it. So today we're going to be learning a couple different items. We're going to be, number one, learning how to make a smoked parsnip puree. We are going to be making a soon-to-be famous barbecue espresso dry rub that's going to go around our venison loin. We're going to talk a little bit about some game meats, how they're fabricated, and from there we're going to create a finishing glaze made of some Vermont maple syrup, some Aleppo spice, and some local honey. And finally we're going to fry up a little bit of rosemary, and we're going to plate this dish up. So let's start with our root vegetable puree, our smoked parsnip puree. So here we have a locally grown parsnip. You'll notice parsnips look a lot like some carrots here. They're related but not in the same family. Both root vegetables, both very sweet. Parsnip, after it's been cooked, tends to be a little bit sweeter than a carrot. Its flavor profile differs as well. It's got notes of some nutmeg and cinnamon, whereas a traditional carrot's going to be taste more like a winter squash. So to make our puree here, what we're going to do is start by peeling our parsnip. So we're just going to go around, give it a nice peel, clean up all the outside. From there, we're going to dice it. As you can see here, we have some fabricated parsnip already diced. It's large dice, just perfect. From there, it's going to get coated in a little bit of some cooking oil, seasoned with just a touch of salt, and baked off in the oven. We're going to go slightly higher heat here, 375 to 400 degrees, for about a half an hour. This is going to caramelize, cook the sugars within the parsnip here. We're looking for a nice little golden coloring from the sugars being cooked here. At our restaurant, our next step what we do is take our cooked parsnips and pop it in our smoker. It gets smoked anywhere for about a half an hour to an hour to really develop all those flavors. Again, it's not necessary for this recipe to give it that smoked aspect, but again, it pairs very well with the game meat and the venison. So from our caramelized and smoked parsnip, it is then going to go into a saute pan. We're going to finish that with some butter, some onion, and once that's cooked down, we are then going to pass it through what's called a chinois and or a fine mesh strainer, and then we're going to pass this puree into a sauce pot, and finally finish with some seasoning of salt, pepper, apple cider vinegar. And what's going to be left here is this nice and thick, beautiful puree. We try to go as thick as we can with this. This is the base of the dish. This is actually what holds the whole dish together. We're almost looking for like a mashed potato type consistency here. Again, it's got some notes of nutmeg, cinnamon, obviously some beautiful butter, and then some very nice smoky sweetness. Pairs very, very well with this dish here. Okay, so that's our puree. We're going to move on. We're going to make our espresso barbecue rub next. So ingredients needed to make this rub. We're going to use some brown sugar. Obviously some espresso. This is some local espresso, fine ground. House-made chili powder. This is some smoked paprika. Dash of cayenne. Some cumin. And finally, some onion powder here. So we're going to start with a little bit of salt. This is going to go into our mixing bowl. We're going to do about a cup of brown sugar. This is 1 tablespoon of espresso. This is, again, 1 tablespoon of some house-made chili powder. We've got half a teaspoon of cayenne. Smoked paprika, some cumin, and finally some onion powder. This is a great rub. Quite versatile. You can use it with poultry, obviously lots of different types of beef. We use it on our game meats as well. We've even put it on some salmon fillets as well, right over on the open fire. I like to use my hand to mix this up. The brown sugar tends to kind of clump a little bit, so you can really get this nice and mixed in. Smells amazing. What you're going to end up with is something that looks like this. Quite colorful. Dry rub, like I said, goes great with all sorts of cuts of beef. You could season your hamburgers with it. It works well with poultry, all sorts of game meats. Put it on our steaks a lot at the restaurant as well. So we're going to take some all-purpose flour here, just your standard AP flour. It's going to go into a third pan. This is what we're going to use to dredge our protein to fry later. And then we're going to take a healthy amount of our espresso rub. I'm going to use about a cup here. And again, as you can see, we're just going to mix this all up. We got notes of a little bit of heat with the cayenne. There's some earthiness in the coffee. You've got some nice allium flavors from the onions. It's really well balanced. A little bit of sweetness from the brown sugar as well. Okay, that's going to be our dry rub for the venison loin here. Okay, so moving over here, again, we love to play with some game meats up with resorted paws up. This is some locally harvested venison loin. We're using, this is called the backstrap, same as a tenderloin. Again, it's the most tender cut on the animal. Again, it doesn't have a lot of hard-working muscle as opposed to like the shoulder. So again, it's kind of relaxed throughout the animal's life, and again, it lends itself to a very, very tender bite of food when we're done. So we've removed the chain, we've removed the heel, and now we're left with just this beautiful center cut of the tenderloin. For this recipe, we're going to do about 2 to 3 ounce portion. Again, I usually serve this as an appetizer, so again, we want to do too big of a cut. So again, right here, about 2 to 3 ounces. And then again, you could use a meat tenderizer. This cut is so tender and beautiful. I try not to put too much weight bearing to it, so I just use my hand right at the base here. Just kind of want to stretch this out, flatten it, ensure even cooking. We're just trying to stretch this out, make just a nice little medallion with it. Okay, so now we got our about 2 to 3 ounce little medallion of our venison loin here. We're going to pour some buttermilk, just like you do any sort of other chicken fried steak, into this vessel. We're going to add some of our barbecue espresso rub to our buttermilk mix. Again, we're just building flavor. Mix that up. All right. Now we're going to put our venison right into the buttermilk. I like to let this sit for at least an hour in the restaurant. Again, for sake of time today, we're just going to let that marinate for just a few minutes. Okay, now one of our last aspects of this recipe is we're going to make our Aleppo pepper, maple, and honey glaze. So very simple, 3 ingredients. We've got some local honey here from Alberton, Montana. This is some Vermont honey, super delicious. And this is some ground Aleppo pepper. It's used in some Mediterranean and Middle Eastern cuisine. Not too hot. It's got about a 10,000 HSU Scoville rating, so it's comparable to like a serrano pepper. Again, a little bit will do you well. We're just again trying to create a little bit of heat with some sweetness balance to it with the final dish here. So we're going to take our mixing bowl. We're going to add all of this honey to it here. It's about a 1/4 cup. Just going to go right in there. All right, next goes in our maple syrup. About equal parts, again about a 1/4 cup. And then we're going to give it a dash of our Aleppo pepper. Again, this is going to get mixed up. It's a really cool looking final product. It's sweet, it's tangy, it's got a little bit of heat to it. And then the Aleppo flake just kind of sparkles right at the end. That's quite simply our Aleppo pepper honey maple glaze. So let's get to the fun part. Let's fry up this tenderloin here. So we've got our barbecue espresso dry rub dredge. We've got our venison loin soaking in the buttermilk. We're going to double dredge this just to ensure that we get this nice crispy golden brown color on our chicken fried venison loin here. What I've had cooking prior to shooting is we've got just a frying pan. We're using just canola oil today. It's a neutral oil, classic for frying. It's got a high smoke rate as opposed to like an olive oil, for example. It's corn-based, so again, a lot of times we'll use a peanut oil, something like that. This is great for people that have peanut allergies, etc. And we've got this oil cooking at 350 degrees. Again, this is going to, once it's double dredged, it's going to cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. So we got our venison loin here. Be afraid to kind of really get in there. And then we're going to give it one more swim here. We're going to really coat this. Okay, great. So we're left with just a classic little chicken fried steak here, and we're going to drop this right into the oil and give it a nice swim. Again, this steak's going to cook for about 2 to 3 minutes. We're using a neutral oil, canola oil, and our temperature here again is at about 350 degrees. Again, we use beef tenderloin a lot. When we get our hands on some venison loin, though, our guests at the resort tend to come out and really love to eat game meat, so we love to present it when it's available. You'll notice as this piece of protein cooks, the bubbles, as the bubbles slow down, you're getting pretty darn close to being done here. Again, with this a small cut of venison, it's very quick cooking time. It smells amazing. Give it a flip. Checking our puree here. It's looking golden brown, it's smelling great. One last flip. All right, so we've been in the water, or excuse me, the oil for about 2 to 3 minutes here. We're gonna pull this out. I've got a lined dish here to kind of let the oil drip off, dry, cool. We're just about done with this recipe. We're gonna garnish today with some fresh rosemary. It's gonna go right into our frying pan. Be careful. This will kind of spit at you a little bit as it goes in. As that's finishing and frying, let's start to construct our final plate here. So, to begin, we have got our smoked parsnip puree. Again, we're trying to puree this as thick as possible. This is going to hold up everything in our dish. We're going to do just a nice dollop here. Rosemary's going to come out, and this is going to be just a little bit of a garnish for us here. It's going to go right on top of our puree. Next comes our beautifully fried chicken fried venison. It's going to live right here, right on top. Now we're going to finish this dish. This is a fun little touch. This is some American paddlefish caviar. This is coming out of Tennessee. We're just going to be generous with this right here. Go right on top. Beautiful little dollop. It's It's going to give some brininess, some saltiness to our nice crunchy earthiness of our venison, smokiness to our puree. And now we're just going to finish with our Aleppo pepper, maple, and honey. We're just going to go right around. All right, everyone. Well, that's our dish right here. This is our smoked parsnip chicken fried venison loin, American caviar, a little bit of fried rosemary, and some Aleppo maple honey. It's not a bad little bite of food right there. Thank you.